Every December, without fail, Centrelink's normal schedule gets disrupted by Christmas and New Year, and every year the same group of people gets caught out by it, not because the rules changed, but because they simply forgot the pattern repeats. Let's go through the 4 things worth knowing before the holiday period lands this year, so you are ahead of it instead of catching up. None of what follows is a new policy or a surprise change the government has just announced. It's the opposite in a way. It's the same predictable disruption that happens every single year, and the reason it still catches people out is exactly because it feels routine rather than urgent. Nobody sends you a letter specifically warning you that your own personal schedule is about to shift for a few weeks. You're simply expected to know, and most people find out the hard way instead. First, your payment date almost certainly moves. Centrelink closes over Christmas Day, Boxing Day and New Year's Day every year, and when your normal payment date falls on or near one of those closures, you generally get paid earlier than usual, not later. Here's the part worth understanding clearly, because it trips people up. This is not extra money. It's your normal payment, arriving early because the office is shut on the day it would ordinarily land. If you don't know that going in, an early payment can feel like a pleasant surprise, and then the following payment cycle feels unusually long, when in fact nothing has actually changed except the timing. Picture someone whose pension normally lands on a Thursday, who suddenly sees it arrive several days earlier than expected the week of Christmas. Without knowing why, it's easy to assume something's gone right, spend a little more freely over the holidays because the balance looks healthier than usual, and then feel the pinch in January when the next payment doesn't arrive until it would have anyway. The total amount over the 2 cycles never changed, only when each installment landed. The exact dates shift every year depending on where Christmas and New Year fall on the calendar, so the specific closure days for this December haven't been confirmed as I'm recording this, but the pattern itself is completely reliable. Once Services Australia publishes the confirmed dates, usually a few weeks out, checking MyGov or the Express Plus Centrelink app is how you find your own exact new date, rather than assuming it matches what happened last year. Before we get into the next 3, hit subscribe and tell me in the comments which state you're watching from. It helps me know what to cover next. Second, and this is the one that actually causes real problems if missed. Reporting dates shift right along with payment dates. If your income reporting normally falls on one of the days Centrelink is closed, that reporting date moves earlier too, sometimes by several days. Miss a shifted reporting date because you were working off your usual schedule instead of the adjusted one, and the consequence isn't a delayed nicety. It's a delayed or reduced payment at exactly the time of year people can least afford one. Picture someone who works a little casual retail over December, same as most years, and simply reports their income on their normal fortnightly date out of habit. If that date has actually moved earlier because of the holiday schedule, reporting late means the payment that depends on that report doesn't process on time. The fix is straightforward. Once the holiday schedule is published, actively check whether your specific reporting date has shifted, rather than assuming your normal rhythm still applies during the one period of the year it reliably doesn't. This is worth taking seriously, precisely because December is also the month people are most likely to be distracted. Family visiting, extra errands, the general chaos of the season, which is exactly when a quiet date change is easiest to miss entirely. Third, something worth timing deliberately if you manage regular prescriptions. The PBS Safety Net threshold resets every 1st of January. Whatever progress you've built up toward that calendar year's free medicine threshold, the one that makes every script free once your family's combined spending crosses it, goes back to 0 on the 1st of January, and the counting starts over from nothing. If you're someone who tends to cross that threshold partway through the year and spend the rest of it with free prescriptions, it's worth knowing that relief disappears the moment the calendar flips and you're back to paying the concession rate per script until you build back up to whatever the New Year's threshold turns out to be. For anyone managing a repeat prescription that isn't urgent, there's a genuinely useful, completely legitimate move here. If you're going to need that medication either way, filling it in the last days of December rather than the first days of January can mean it still counts toward the old year's threshold instead of starting a fresh count against the new one. Worth a conversation with your regular pharmacist about timing if you're managing several ongoing scripts. Picture someone who crossed the safety net threshold back in August and has been filling every script free since then. Come January the 1st, that's gone. They're back to the concession rate on every prescription until they build up to whatever the New Year's threshold turns out to be, which for someone managing multiple ongoing conditions can mean a genuinely noticeable jump in January's out-of-pocket costs compared to what December looked like. Knowing that in advance, rather than being surprised by a bill in January that used to be free in December, is the whole value of flagging it now. There's a fourth thing worth knowing, and it's genuinely different from the automatic early payment we just covered, because this one is something you actively choose rather than something that just happens to you. If you've been on the age pension for at least 3 months, you can apply for what's called an advance payment, effectively borrowing a lump sum against your own future pension, then paying it back in smaller amounts across your next 13 regular payments. The advance itself is real, current money. For a single pensioner, it can be a genuinely useful amount, and it's specifically designed for exactly the kind of extra cost December tends to bring. The honest catch is right there in how it works. It's not a bonus, it's your own future payments arriving early, spread thin across more than half a year afterward. Picture someone who takes an advance to cover Christmas gifts for grandchildren, gets the lump sum in early December, and then notices their regular fortnightly payment is a little lighter than usual for months into the new year. That's not a mistake or a penalty. It's exactly how the advance is designed to work, but it's worth deciding deliberately rather than being surprised by smaller payments later and not remembering why. One rule to know before applying: if you've already taken an advance in the past 12 months, you can't take another one, so this is worth planning for rather than assuming it's available at the last minute every year. Here's what ties these four together. 3 of them are simply what happens every single December on a schedule that's completely predictable once you know to expect it, and the 4th is a choice sitting there for anyone who wants it. None of them are Centrelink doing anything unusual. The people who get caught out aren't dealing with a policy change. They're dealing with their own normal routine running into the one time of year it doesn't quite apply, and nobody reminded them in advance. And because it happens every year rather than being a one-off, this is exactly the kind of thing worth building into a habit rather than relearning from scratch each December. Once you know to check MyGov for the holiday schedule as soon as it's published, checking your own specific reporting date, thinking about prescription timing before the calendar flips, and deciding deliberately whether an advance payment makes sense for you this year, all 4 become a 5-minute task instead of a source of stress. 2 honest notes before you go. First, the exact closure and reporting dates for this December haven't been published at the time of recording. Confirm your own specific dates through MyGov or the Express Plus Centrelink app once Services Australia releases the holiday schedule. Second, this is general information, not personal advice. How these 4 things affect your own payments and prescriptions depends on your specific circumstances, so confirm directly with Services Australia or your pharmacist. If you've been caught out by the Christmas schedule before, tell me in the comments what happened. It helps me know what to cover next. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.